Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome to my overview of Manor Lords. So it's a little bit different today. Usually when I do an overview, it's only the first 2 hours, being that that's the Steam refund window. I've put about 5 hours into this now, but I thought I'd drop this video ahead of release. It's not an exhaustive review, and this game is still early access. It's got some limitations, some grayed out areas and that sort of stuff. A few bugs, things like my camera inexplicably snapping to the edge of the map. Nothing game breaking, that's for sure. So for what is, from what I understand, like a one-man job, this is pretty phenomenal. As far as I'm concerned, it's worth my time, my money, and it's living up to the hype so far. It's being published by Hooded Horse, who have very quickly become one of my favorite indie publisher, especially around more cerebral, strategic type games. They generally do things like this, colony builders and such. So yes, believe the hype, this is pretty awesome. And in the world of early access, there's a lot here, and I can see myself putting many more hours in. So what is Manor Lords? Well, look, funnily enough, the elevator pitch probably isn't that sexy. Looking at it in motion, it definitely has an appeal to a certain crowd, of which I sit in, enjoying colony builders, medieval type things. I suppose if you really wanted to try and pitch it, it kind of sits between something like Medieval Dynasty and Total War, right? Yes, it is a colony builder, but it's kind of straddling a territory which is not oft straddled, in that there's a kind of granular, almost at the smaller scale level of managing a village and township, as opposed to something like, Anno, where the scale is quite humongous. This is much more Hamlet level, but it actually, funnily enough, mentioning Anno, it has that real-time logistics. Items get moved to and from, that sort of thing. It's not just a counter in a corner. But it also handles combat with that kind of old school Warhammer come Total War, regimental movement blocks, that sort of thing. It is a smaller scale, again, that is kind of the theme of this entire thing. So while it's not exactly as specialized in any of those examples, I think it does really well of kind of taking a synergy of dipping its toe into all these disparate spots and making its own kind of unique thing. So you get quite attached to your little town. The loop is essentially, build out burgage plots for people to move into, and then a family will move into a home if your sort of attractiveness rating is high enough, and that's kind of established mostly through food variety and stalls, but obviously just general amenities, church access, tavern access, these sort of things that you'd kind of expect. And so the sexier your town is, the quicker those plots will fill up and get manned by families. And then all the sort of little trades or businesses or whatever you'd like to call them, you allocate a family to them. And you can put multiple families into it to sort of scale up production. But generally speaking, that's kind of the shtick to it, is that a family holds down a plot. Which is also doubly interesting when you get into kind of a militaristic component of this. I haven't played around with the mutators too much, but your sort of default scenario is north guarding around this map that's broken up into different areas that you can claim, and you start with one and you've got an opponent on the map that also starts with one as well. You do have bandit camps and that sort of stuff, but generally, like I said, by default out of the box, it's kind of a 1v1. But when you do decide you want to gear up to combat, you build like a militia, and that's made out of your township populace, and they will equip from surplus into their home. Like they'll grab spears and shields if you make a spear militia, that sort of thing. So it has a much more intimate component. Like it's not granular, at least in terms of your interaction with it, but it's more the moving parts of the almost civilian economy, which we see in other games like Distant Worlds. So under their own power, the head of the household, I haven't really watched him specifically, but he'll go around town and pick up a spear, shield, and if you've got extra bits of armor like helmets, he'll also grab that gear as well. And then when you call the banners and stand up your little regiments, if they are logistically supplied enough at that individual level, then they will fill out the role and you'll have yourself a little regiment. And it's particularly nerve-wracking, the combat. Again, not super intense in your options, but there's a sort of tug of war, a push-pull. and you're sitting there biting your nails because while you might not necessarily be attached to each family by name, you know full well that a death of a dude in that fighting rank is a working man from one of your households who may well be the chief bloody dude running the apiaries. Like, it actually kind of adds that intimacy. I don't know what the best term is for it, but you know, things that you potentially come up against with, say, like an XCOM where you become attached to your dudes, but the lethality of it makes it kind of that much more interesting. And so, look, I haven't really, in the time that I've spent, I haven't really had huge bloody World War III battles or anything like that, but I can only assume that if you have a Pyrrhic victory against an enemy, you could probably death spiral your town because half the working age men are all dead. So it's good because it's not something you really see in these games, and yet it would have been a very real component of this kind of Hamlet lifestyle, I guess. It's cool. Anyway, generally speaking, it works really well. You can walk around town and have a look at it. As far as bugs, performance issues, I haven't really had any. I haven't gotten super deep into the game's mid and end game, because these sort of games, and maybe some people will understand and relate, like the way I organically play them is I'll play a Hamlet for a couple of hours and then I'll learn some things and then I'll re-roll it and I'll start again. So I've restarted probably 3 times. And to me, honestly, and again, I might be the only one, but that's usually a hallmark of a great game, a great colony builder, one that kind of makes you want to, oh yeah, okay, cool, right, let's restart, let's give it another bit of a go and stop starting. But yeah, broadly speaking, Manor Lords, it's worth the hype, it's worth it all. The only thing that you just, I suppose, keep in the back of your mind is that it is in fact early access, right? It is not 100% feature complete. There is stuff here, and in the scheme of early access, it's better than most for sure. And so I guess that's the component that I kind of have to fight in my soul, is that I kind of want to just hoover this game up and play it non-stop, but I also don't want to burn myself out. Anyway, team, I don't want to waffle. Game's brilliant. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.